How do we gaze at the passage of time, at stillness and decay? This is a question for experimental film. Welcome back to Art Before Words. Today we're joined by experimental filmmaker Wenhua Shi. Before we begin, let me briefly show you around while introducing him. So, this is his office at UMass Amherst, where he teaches film and animation. Wenhua is a scavenger of images, from macro shots of Jamaica Plain with a handheld camera, to eroded film, to a flickering bird in cage vision of a rose and fence. Most of all, his works explore the perception of time, the opaque, contemplative, even lyrical experience when attention becomes elongated. As an artist who crossed the Pacific from China to the US, time and time again he also returns to the theme of displacement and migration. Wenhua works across film, video, sound, and installation. His works have been exhibited internationally. He is also the founder and one of the curators of RPM Fest, which shows experimental film.
我们苏联相机给你看一看。
哦，
苏联的，就是网上啊，看看这个16毫米，挺漂亮的。这都能用，这都能用。这是全手动的。是我上发条这个方向上。声音挺好的。
文化老师，那我们就 switch 到英语了。
Okay, that's good.
So starting with your film Field Recording, portrait of sound artist Helmut Schaffer. That was back in 2003. So on your online portfolio, that was the earliest film that was displayed there. And so I was just curious about what brought you to make this film about this sound artist. What was your, I guess, career situations around that time, and what was how did that encountering happen?
So great question. I know that was not my first films, but then pretty early on work. 2003, I was still in the undergrad study film in United States. And then what happened is a really important music scene happening in China during that time. My friends, which is actually so much connected. So suddenly we know each other since the 90s. And then his name is Yao Dajun. And then he organizing the first experimental sound exhibit in China. What happened is in 2003. The interesting part is the location is what we call 藏库. 藏库 is a artist space, is actually organizing by Lin Tianmiao, which is a famous contemporary installation artist. She just returned China, so opened the space for installation art shows. And then that 2003 is the first sounding Beijing happening, which is the first experimental sound show. For me, because I think that during the 90s, I was really invested in Chinese music scene as well. So even I was in school, so I just asked permission, say I'm gonna go back to China for this week, and then the show throughout 2 or 3 days. And the first day, everybody had jet lag, so everyone's wake up 4 o'clock in the morning. And even Hammer Schaefer is from Switzerland. We all wake up at the same time. It's really early, and his show is going to be third or last day. So first 2 days, he was thinking about doing some field recording around the city. So now I say, how about I just follow along, tackle along, filming what you do, because it's an important part that feels like a particular like experimental art, contemporary art, or avant-garde cinema. Immediately after the festival, I was bound down with all my studies, so I never added it. But unfortunately, 2008, he committed suicide. So at that time, people who has any of his work or unreleased work, and then I know that. So I do have some footage of he was recording, and then soon after that, and I added it together, released it. So the work is sort of becomes like a tribute to his practice. Unfortunately, he is suffering some mental depressions, and then even that what we call the social welfare is really standard in Europe, and then he's well received, always work, but cannot defeat the depressions. It's kind of interesting to see that period of time of Beijing as well. So we live in the 东四十条. It's really funny. The story is that little what we call the 四合院, the old traditional courtyard system of hotel, was no longer exists. So after 10 years later, I would say, and people, my friends always say, "Oh, I want to go back. I want to visit China." I say, "Oh, that's the place. If you go Beijing, you can call up this number. You can book your places." And then, of course, we call the place, and this is like some sales offices numbers, no longer a hotel. So, which is a great part of whatever documentation film you produce at a certain time, and then you're looking back and then realize so much nuance, so much changes be presented.
Life and work at that time, since you were studying in the US, how did you keep in contact with China and what was happening in China?
Interesting part is at that time, 2005 is the changes, because that time has a Facebook. Early 2000 time changes through mostly through email, and then sometimes you still can shipping for some packages. Many of my friends is in the field, whatever in the music or in the avant-garde arts, and also in the traditional sense of independent films. So a lot of time connections built the past years. So we sort of keeping contact, but of course it's really far away. So many people are moving away from a hometown, or most of the people there are in Beijing or Shanghai. Traditional bulletin board, messaging board kind of a community was a crackdown because of the or how we say, the fade away, because the people becomes moving away, or becomes not so much of a place to gather anymore. That they become smaller, because the general, for example, in the 90s, maybe everybody on the cinema bulletin discussions, and then they become smaller genres, and then they don't intersect anymore. And then the physical locations, in 90s, probably you still can go to the market, even the black market, right? You can buy DVDs, buy CDs, buy those imports, right? Illegal imports. But then after 2000, they gradually those markets shut down, so less and less. So yeah, it's really hard, but they still have good friends, maintain contacts. But later on, it's like social media really booming, and then you have another wave of way to get connected.
About your choice of subject, field recordings, I noticed that you're often a very like a multimedia artist, and so could you tell me a bit about like the connection between sound and cinema, and like a little about your works on sound?
Because we can make that joke, right? The air is different. The air quality is different. Not just only see through the image, but also should be reflect on sound as well, right? If you don't have it's like Nanjing, like Wuhan or Shanghai, those summer is so hot. But if you only see the photos, you probably not that much of a good way to presenting that temperature. But from sound, you probably right away you can recall the crickets sounds, all those people's dragging their feet on the ground, and the people sleeping on the outside, on the street sides, or people will cool down the concrete or pouring the water constantly. So those are really vivid, right? So you can close your eyes, that time periods. So if you think about winter, you don't hear those type of activity, you don't have the sound. Impatient, those taxi driver becomes, right? The honking, the how frequent. So I think that's one major things I will say is the organic static. You had to be, of course, when you do the editing, you had to be very selective rather than everything sound. But then they're so pointing, and they are can help the audience to really feel the sense of the places. Once I think about those field recording being using the ambient is, and then you realize how much you can take away. So you don't need dramatic music anymore. You don't need to be think about the top 10 music anymore. We don't necessarily need the beats. So those are the really important things, I think. Even from then to now, I work. But of course, now the economic restraints even more. So record yourself and then construct the sort of soundscape yourself is the best, rather than spend a lot of money to hiring people to do that. So.
I hear this ticking in our background.
Yeah, so that ticking probably is some water dripping, because but now we know the snow, it's like a 5 foot, 10 foot heavy snow. When the suns come down, they first create the ice cube, right? The ice, and then they melt in the ice and becomes those ticking. So.
Since the film was shot in 2007.
2003.
Yeah, 2003.
And the release in 2007.
And and the DV cameras were really popular in China at that time. So like, how what camera did you use to shoot the film?
I think I borrowed somebody's camera in China, either from Beijing Film Academy or one of a no, actually I think my friend Qing Lei, he's at that time is a graduate student in Central Academy of Drama. So and then he becomes but that time they starting expand it, so they're doing film as well. So I just asked him to lend me the cameras, which in some parts I actually did not include in the film is overexposed parts because of that camera I had never used before. So when the day becomes brighter, and then they overblow the shots, which is also very interesting. One time I was thinking about using that because I basically follow him across the to Wangfujing, some places, but then all those shops disappeared in the whiteout, so only have a little green figures walking.
And I feel like you're overall really connected to like the music world. Like you collect CDs, and you're also a DJ. And so I just find that connection very interesting.
I was a DJ for a period of time in '90s when I was at college, and then I have a choice to go to the medical school or go to agriculture school, all in Wuhan. And I saw the agriculture university is too far from any shopping center, so I chose in the medical school. And then what happened is the same street is the radio station, the TV stations. So I would just accidentally I made some friends, and then they say, "Wow, you have so amazing collections. You want to come to our radio station? You can start with the writing scripts for them, and supply some music. And then later on, they say, wow, maybe I give you 2 hours for a week, and you can do the radio shows." So that's what happened. So it's really, really great to have those connections. But of course, 2 hours per week is not that much time in terms of DJing. But that gave me an excuse for making more friends and then collecting more. So yeah, even in the United States, I did 4 years of radio as well at my undergrad university station. Quite interesting. Yeah, so, yeah. It's good to know. Basically, music can intersect with every category or demographic of audience, right? So they always could be. Somebody will never say, "Oh, I hate music." So, well, that's too bad.
The second film that I picked out was your palimpsest series. So the cities in this series include Berlin, Beijing, and New York, which is another instance of you like crossing borders. Okay, first off, I saw like the Berlin and the Beijing series on your website, but like I was wondering what became of the New York series, like.
So during the time, those interesting parts, I have different thoughts. So because when I selected the city, actually they were more associated with the revolutions. So I think Beijing is a good place. We have a Shanghai革命, which is 1911, and then we have 1949, the second revolutions. So throughout the places, Beijing as a sites of not just only dynasty changes, and also which is always the symbol of China's. So I do really think about. Beijing could be a site of exhibit to think about all those ideas. So the Berlin is also very interesting. That the parts I was invited, I was sort of a commission working with architecture. The Martin's architect. Berlin has one of called Tempelhof Airport, which is between building the Nazi Germany years, and then they using for until 70s, and then and during the Cold War years as airdrop, lifting places for connecting the West and then the West Berlin, which because the Berlin was separated into two cities and then surrounded the wall, and also other neighbors is the East Germany. So, but then the airport becomes abandoned, right? So So Martin's idea is going to have a proposal for what to use that empty land. So we sort of get together. We want to see how that space being changes, right? So we go there. We do field research as well. The method is very similar both places. Beijing's the geographic plans how to sort out how to change your behavior, and also the same thing. We want to see temple hall for that area, that empty land, how to change your perspective in the city as well. So we made those two short films. The interesting part is the Beijing films actually separated out and then becomes 10 times, and then the about the history part then becomes the palimpsest of Beijing. So which is that's a lot of happening. The reason is when you're working on a project, your purpose and being changed, and then maybe that project went through, but you have all those footage, you have the ideas, you're morphing them into a new project and then release it. In terms of New York, I film a lot and I never use it because the reason is because so many people film New York already, and then New York, in my mind, is not that political revolutionized in a way. But of course, the people say, freeze land, the German director, and they when they see the New Yorker from the Hudson's, right? They feel changes, they feel difference, and then that give their idea to make a metropolis, the film, but then maybe too stretch, and also the high rise or skyscraper is no longer that symbol of a progress, right? So particularly in the 2000s, and then what happened is 2001, right? The 9/11 happens, and the New York becomes so hard to think about like a cityscape or work without try to avoid that part thinking, right? Think about the 9/11 as a like a significant thing. So that's the reason I never really finished that work, because of all those potential interpretations and maybe different. So it's really hard to pivot to other things.
The way you think about found footage, which you used throughout this series, and specifically I found it very interesting in the Beijing film, where there were like street scenes of Beijing and Shanghai filmed by an official during Nixon's visit, and so what were your thoughts when you saw this footage? And also, how did you obtain this footage?
What happened is that I was working at the Colgate University at the time, and then my new colleague, Penny Lan, she and her ex-husband working on the project called Our Nixon. So that's one of the solely rely on the found footage. A piece talk about using Nixon's recording and using Nixon's footage, and then they able to visit the Nixon library and then receive those footage from Nixon's assistant or his cabinet members' film. So those are 1972, 1973, two visits in China at the time. What they just use a regular Super 8 cameras, amateur cameras, recording on the train, on the way to the meetings, so the driving through the cities. Their project, Our Nixon's, a lot more comprehensive and analytical, in a way, it has all the notations where the sound come from, all the places come from. But I just interesting in what I want to see, what they didn't use. So those are the footage mainly from their resource. For me, I really thought about because they're driving so much around. As everybody probably knows, when you film, you have your own interests, right? Why do you want to zoom in into that water bottle over there? Why do you want to zooming out into somebody's face? That's what I first glance through those footage and say, that's the first time for a foreigner come to Beijing, what they want to film. That's another story is, of course, we know, like in 1972, Antonioni, the Italian filmmaker, able to, when visit China, make the Zhongguo, the 4-hour-long documentary, right? So you can see the comparison, you can see how the people's interests is so a vast difference. So for me, that piece then becomes how to change them into a different way, so see through my analytical thinking about those footage. So for me, I would think about the driving is on the road. We know the crazy part is after that visit and in China being opened up, and then the following year I was born. So it was thinking about that changes. Like people, we same thing. We probably don't know what's happening right now, right? The Super Bowl gonna. New England Patriots gonna win, right? So they're gonna be changing, right? If a win, they're gonna have a parade, have all the crazy things gonna be happening, right? So that's why I say I would really think about if you're living that moment, see the things very different than we know what's happening because there are little smaller events happening. Right? Just a group of people secretly visit China, and then what leads to so. That's a really strong initial reaction to those footages. So, of course, I construct this as a driving, just a driving test, or you just circle around. You don't know what it should be going, right? If anybody watching Twilight Zone, so Twilight Zone is sort of a science fiction thing. So one of the episodes basically the town. Has all the beautiful roads, but then you only can driving inside the town. You don't know where's the exit. So that's what I think is at that moment, all the audience don't know the exit is. So we just try to circle around. So, yeah, but of course, found footage has so many other way to use. A lot of people using it as a commentating, like a parody, like think about how funny it is. Also, you can think about the study, right? Research on the custom, but the anthropology way of using found footage or illustrating certain ideas is probably hard. So my way of using it is just more loose and more opening. You can do that, and I did some performance. With that piece, I basically not necessarily use a linear progression of those footage anymore. So because right now we set the time, so I could just each shot as one clip, and then I can randomly put out the clips, and then also I can repeat them or rewind them, and then but the way of I work it with the performance is. I describe the shots, right, based on my knowledge, or I invite the audience to commenting on those things because they can drive by some building people can recognize. Some people could know who's there as well. So different approach to those things. One part of it's like Penny Lane, they're using a lot of meeting footage. For illustrator or soldiers outside the Jinjiang Fandian, which is in Shanghai, Jinjiang Hotel or Zhongnanhai. but I never use those things. I do feel the gate of heavens is more interesting to drive through that. So that actually tells a lot, because normal people, you even cannot cross through the gates. Not so you can drive through the gates.
And then in the background, there was the music of the piano, like a contemporary Chinese person practicing Mozart. How did you come up with the idea of connecting these two elements?
So my friends just practice. They had to flip the page and then speed run and then replace. Political situations or unfolding contemporary events is just like that, right? So you had to put out the actions to do it. Never have this clear linear way when we describe the history of happens, right? So I do feel a lot of imagery wise don't have that, right? We don't have this like even Nixon probably can record all his talking, all his discussions, but then none of the people can really record all the thoughts, right? So I just want to have those kind of stumble, the starter, the feeling of the history being moving forward or changes, right? So that's that reason. Of course, the Mozart is the classical music in China, which is also particularly in late 70s, 80s, is really important until now, because that symbols the opening, right? The allow the Western music in. It's the key symbols of the opening, right? So, and of course, in 90s it's still really strong. Hope becomes everybody should learn piano. 2002, right? So now becomes okay. Only the genius, only the people can endure the 24 hours practice can do that. All the rest of people should quit. Yeah, if you cannot be long, don't do it. So that's the reason why I use it. But of course, I don't expecting the audience know it, but they do have those kind of feelings, right? Moving, stop moving. It's like a car driving, and then the music as well.
Mm-hmm. When you were describing this series on your website, you call it a series of videos. And so is there a particular way in which you use the word video versus film? And do you prefer to call it a video rather than film?
I think it's purely just based on the mediums, right? So even Nixon's footage is shooting on Super 8, but then we're not viewing as 18 frames per second as the film, the speed. So we transfer them into 30 frames per second. So because the majority of editing is video editing as well. I do feel if you don't expect to go back to projecting them on the film, maybe we should just call it videos. For me, many people will say, oh, the quality, the texture, I don't insist on those things, or I'm not a purist. Even I use both, but then I more prefer to say is if the final exhibition format is more important.
In your description, you also said that you attempt to re-examine the different forms of modernity and its utopia with the cities. So could you tell me a bit more about like the differences in like how modernity and utopia takes form in Berlin and Beijing?
Beijing probably is very. All of those has those we should pay more attention to those architecture, right? As its original functions and the current functions, and then what the future function is, because unlike many other things, right? The books or the films, we could be store them, we can hide them, lock them up, and then they're no longer in the circulations, right? So, but then most of the modernist movements and their architecture is a very first of all, they do have functional use. So whatever stadium, Berlin stadiums, or of course the imperial cities, the first telecom building in China, in Beijing, or those beautiful shopping mall in Wangfujing, right? Also the courtyard houses. So they build for certain reasons, for certain ideas, because if you think about the courtyard, it's really for those high officials living surrounding the imperial cities, right there. If you can inside the Dong which is the alleyway, the streets based on your rankings, so you're automatically the hierarchy proposed on the projected on the cities. The map already, so those are you cannot ignore, right? So yeah, and then if you're like, it's so interesting if you think about all those where do you go to the school, which is zip code, which is all tied into that kind of economic or social backgrounds. So that's the key, right? And of course, if you think about why do we will build more houses? Why city expand? Because of the sensor and the data, and then you will say, oh, okay, where we can extend, well, which part of the field going to be converting to city use, municipal use, and how the roads been built. So in that sense, those modernization, like for example, the roads, the railways, airports, infrastructure. How do you think about that? So that's really the crucial, the foundation for doing those films or works. Another more filming contemporary time, the time is sort of from that ideas. So you gradually move out of the cities from the center to the periphery. So yeah, more. So that allows me at least can use for installation work and with the company. All those city plans also could be like cinema, just viewing as it is. So, yeah. Yeah, the Berlin as well, right? If you think about all those headquarters of police office becomes today's uses, and then the railway stations, all those train stations functions, and then the park and then so a lot of ideology being posed on the places, and very interesting to see. I know even the West Side, right? When we see their election results, is very similar too, right? The economic divide, right? The proposed the political divides is very apparent in those maps.
And the title also caught my eye, the palimpsest, which is this layered erasure and rewriting, but then like the past still leaves like traces of its existence. Why did you choose this title? And I just saw the palimpsest, and then also it was the tribute to the man with the movie camera, and I was like, oh, how do these two things connect?
Yeah, because the practice-wise, the cinema practice, I feel the man with the moving cameras is one of any of those city symphony films, right? So of course I don't want to be making a symphony, but I just want a smaller, the solo, or that type of things. I don't have that grander idea about commencing the entire cities, but I do know that practice, right? They basically send out all the people go capture anything's excitements about this new nation, sort of in the Soviet Union. So that's the really key parts, and then of course the ambition, so important as well. Yes, I do think about those searching for the trace, right? See through the today's and then see the past. That's the key. And it's really hard to find the titles. So a lot of times you had to wait for you finish and then say, oh, maybe I should just call this and then. But of course, the title is always important to give you another chance, or without any explanations, to make people to think about what your initial, what's your thoughts. So. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Last question about this film. So you've been living in the U.S. for a while when making it, and how do you feel like moving from China to the U.S. changed your filmmaking a little bit?
I've been living here at least 25 years, so quarter of a century is really a long time. A total change. Because when I was in China at the time, even working for a TV station, we have a crew. So we have somebody do recording the audio, somebody operating the camera, one person do the directing or the script, sometimes at the same time. And then we go out and then sort of a social documentary practice or sports related, right? You capture the events, you're gonna figure it out. So when work as one time I actually really vividly remembered is that we went to Yichang. We have two car, you're driving the car and then the two van, right? The full of the people, all the equipments, and we're filming people. Which is one person has only have one arm, has a injury doing the work, and then he wants to cross the Changjiang Yangtze River, so we had to run the boats, and we do so much things for long. We stay there for a week to anticipate this events, right? So those are. Even in China, that's big productions, and the outcome is the same. It's a one segment of a large show, an hour show, but only probably 15 minutes long. Right? So it's very different. So in the United States, I would never consider to go out the industry or the Hollywood or even industry is a sort of a independent feature length film. So I adopting the way as a personal work. So it's artist film. So probably limits the crew, maybe me, and then sometimes as a cinematographer, sometimes a sound recording. So it's really small, individualized. I think maybe the idea is what is a cinema, what is a film is changing. So now it could be anything. So.
I vaguely remember reading somewhere that you study under Stan Brakhage.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, that's so cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, and also intimidating, and then at the same time it's really hard too, because I was there from 2000 to 2005, and then he retired in 2003, and then soon after that he passed away. So maybe just only the short intersections. So more conversation with the stand is in the record store and in the grocery store. So, I work at a grocery store as a cashier and what we call the bagger. So you're buying things that somebody help you to put into a grocery bag. So I worked in that for a couple of years. So he constantly shopping at the store. And then we always meet up, saw each other at the record store, which we flip through the things. And then he buy music, I buy music. Sometimes I go to another store. People say, "Oh, you're from Boulder, and did you know so and so just here earlier?" Always him. And of course, he like a painting at the coffee shop outdoor. So I always walk there, see him doing his work. And then, of course, he worn out the welcome from the coffee shop. Just imagine nowadays, everybody sitting in the Starbucks, only order one cup of coffee and stay there whole day. So he's the original Starbucks sitter. He will do exactly the same thing. He will order one coffee, stay there whole day for doing his work. Yeah.
Did he influence your filmmaking?
I think so. Yeah, of course. And also I have another teacher as a much more follow him more closely, like Phil Solomon. So Phil's my advisor. But for me, Stan's really hard to imitating. So I try to not. And then I think the most important aspect is actually when I first moved United States, I went to the screening. So he hosting screening every Sunday afternoon. We'll show like 3 hours of experimental films. And then I was the first arrive, and then I just walk it in. And then it's like, oh my God, you can hear your breathing. The thing's still showing. Oh my God, hour later, still showing the same thing. Nothing progress, right? As many people probably know, the experimental film, the duration is really the thing. So after 3 hours, the screening is over, and he give a longer dialogue conversations, and then etc. But then, of course, the second day I was kind of pissed off because I still think about, oh my God, what a crazy, beautiful spring Sunday afternoon. I had to be in that auditorium watching this guy show me something. I would joke and say, oh, he even don't know these talk about. So I called up. At that time, we don't have a really good different nowadays. Probably people writing emails. But then I would just pick it up the phone and say, Stan, I was planning taking your class, but I went to your screening. I cannot stand it. But then how can I do about this? But I need the credits. Just like all typical students. So I hang up. I say, okay, talk to you soon, maybe. So he called me back. He say, oh, you know what? You don't like that? It's fine. I teaching a course called Herzog and Kim Burns. I say, you should like that one. So I go to that classes, and then they happens they don't have a projectionist, so I able to projection the classes, but then I realized that's another mistake because I realized I don't like Kim Burns that much. And then actually, what is learned from that is truly tell me, Phil, and what he taught me is really, of course, all those techniques and all those philosophy as well. The one thing is a really important part of the film is not necessarily need to be huge budget, the crew and telling the stories, or you need to be have hundreds, thousands of people like it. You know, you do your own things. You might find your audience, you might find the way, and also could be no audience. That's fine too. Only one person. He loves Joseph Cornell. Joseph Cornell basically made a film, collage films, for his disabled brothers, right? So just only recording all those silent movies. So it's many ways to think about, right? You had to separate the commercial product with the artist's intent. So that's really important. So that's what I really think I really appreciate it.